So the talk is actually on full duplex communication, one of the hottest areas in wireless communication. We also have three professors who didn't meet in the meeting. So we have Professor Rashwan. He's one of our very well-known professors in the area of natural language processing. We also have Professor Eva Murad, one of our pioneers in wireless communication. Professor Fatma from Ain Shams University. So it's good to have actually also Professor from Ain Shams, our sister university, so we can actually also look there if you
Thank you so much, Professor Khaled, for introducing me, and it's a true honor to be here today with you and share some of our results. The talk will be, I would say that our solutions would be easy solutions, and you will see, but actually we had a contract with the industry and we work on that contract. So about duplex communications, but before that, I would really like to thank the people here who invited me to this talk. And this work has been supported by Huawei Technologies Canada and these other applications coming out of that. We also filed for some patents. In fact, the first two authors are Egyptians. As you see from the names, one is a PhD student who graduates this year, the other one is a postdoctoral fellow, and the last two authors are from Dobre, Canada. Where are we situated? We are situated here, that's the most distant one in Canada. Here is BC, so basically Vancouver. And we are nearly 5 hours away, flight-wise to London, UK, but actually 6 hours to Calgary and 8 hours to Vancouver. And some nice photos from our city during the summer, spring and fall. Winter is not so nice. And this is a photo of the university, basically. Also, some facts about our university. I want to emphasize here that we have over about 4,000 graduate students, and they come from all over the globe. And the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science is in total 51 in engineering and technology, according to PhD. Now, also related to my research group, and not only my research group, but I collaborate with two professors in our department. So we do wireless communications and optical communications. We've also started to work on underwater communications because we are situated really so close to the Atlantic Ocean. So it makes lots of sense. And here is our lab, actually, in a new facility. You can see the group of my students, and you can see some how many students from Egypt there are here. You can count them. I can say that it has been a great experience working with all of them. We also have equipment for optical communications. And I will talk a little bit about the work that we are doing in that area as well. Okay. So in terms of research overview, in the last 16 years ago, or around 17 years, my group got around $60 million in funding from different companies, different funding agencies. We collaborate with each other in memorial. In Canada, we have projects with other universities like UBC, University of Toronto, but also internationally with different institutions in different countries. And now about the research topics, and actually I'll talk a little bit about the research topics here. So, we all maybe work, or most of us work on the serial communications, right? And we all know that 5G brought the FR2, the frequency range 2 millimeter wave out to 52.6 gigahertz. But also we know that in release 17 we had also frequencies to 70 gigahertz. Why I say that? Because also we know that radar systems work in millimeter wave. So now one of the ideas about the new generation of wireless communication systems is to do integrated sensing and communication. So we are working, this is one of the areas that we are working on, integrated sensing and communications. We also know that the community is actually even now studying terahertz communications. We don't really work on that, but we have done some work on VLC. We also know as a new technology about the intelligent effective surfaces, because so far we look at the transmitter and the receiver, how we can deal with the waveform, how we can better or get a better bit error rate and so on in the physical layer. But now, and how we actually mitigate the effects of the channel. But now, hopefully, with the IRS or RS technology, we can change some of the characteristics of the channel. We don't have experiments on that, but currently I applied for a grant to purchase some IRS, intelligent effective surfaces, from a company from France, so hopefully we'll have some in the lab and we experiment. So this would be for terrestrial, but we also know that we have communication and computing, so we cannot do communication without computing anymore. We also know that Ericsson and NVIDIA actually signed an agreement a couple of years ago, such that Ericsson is using the Omniverse of NVIDIA to design smart cities. And we have also invited the digital twin. And also the digital twin has been considered in other areas, but now we are looking at that in the communication area. Okay, so these are some of the technologies, certainly artificial intelligence, machine learning that everybody is talking about, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But futuristic, really, people are considering even holographic communications. Well, we don't know whether or not we are going to have those in 6G, but people are considering all types of ideas. And it's not anymore about the terrestrial, actually, wireless network, but we look at the integration of the non-terrestrial network. And also, this was part of release 17. For the non-terrestrial network, they have a pointer here. We have actually certainly the UAVs and even hubs. And I'm not sure if you are familiar, but there is a hub alliance. And they look at deploying hubs. Google and other companies, big companies, try some projects with hubs, and especially to bring wireless in the rural communities. We have a lot of such communities. I mean, Canada is a huge country geographically, and we have about 30 million inhabitants, kind of, Cairo population, but it's so much spread around the country. And certainly satellite communications, and we look at the integration of non-terrestrial with terrestrial. Some people can say, well, physical layer is dead, okay? Well, yes and no, because to do integrated sensing and communications, we need to think about the waveform, right? We have waveforms for communications, but what about for sensing, right? For radar, there are different types of waveforms. So waveform design can be something that we can look at. What else? Even for the digital twin, if you want, if we need to transmit very fast, how do we transmit very fast, right? Okay, well, so much to talk. We can talk 1 hour or more only on this slide, but maybe I should move on. Quantum computing and other technologies, and not to forget artificial intelligence, right? And machine learning and artificial intelligence it's actually part of the release 18 of the 3GPP. So if you want to look at the 3GPP website, you can see what they are working on. When I would say machine learning, artificial intelligence, right, it's such a hot topic. But what do we use? We use supervised learning, unsupervised learning, we use reinforcement learning, we use even distributed learning, right, federated learning. But there are so many problems actually to solve, I mean, if you have supervised learning, is that suitable for your application or for what application? Do you have enough data to train? If the scenario in wireless changes, the channel changes, is that enough? Do we generalize it enough? Or do we use other techniques for, how can we generalize that model? If we use, let's say, federated learning, then what resources are we using for communication and what resources for learning? Because we have the pipeline, we have the communication pipeline, right? But we need to communicate and we need to learn. So how we deal actually in all this network with the data and also with the communication. Right? So many problems to solve. And I'm sure that the specialists in artificial intelligence, like machine learning, can teach us new techniques and tell us, because they are advanced, right? We use those as tools, but we can learn from them. Okay, so I should move on, because otherwise I'm not going to reach the topic. Okay, so for Duplex Communication, that's kind of the outline of the introduction, and that I will focus on self-interference cancellation. And as I said, okay, is the physical layer kind of dead? Well, I don't think so. And I'll show you some very simple examples, really simple examples of models that we developed as they work well. And then we'll conclude the talk. So, for duplex communications, what we have base station, we need to communicate through duplex, a transmitter receiving at the same time. Certainly that we have self-interference, clearly. But if we look at the network, actually there can be interference from the uplink users to the downlink users by using the same frequency channel, and that's in a cell, but it can be also inter-cell interference. Now here these are just some figures from some papers that we published, and how we deal with interference, because this becomes an interference limited scenario. For example, here we use non-orthogonal one-to-one access with group users, we try to do beamforming, we try to design all that such that we can deal with the interference. Other applications, one base station transmitter receiving the same time, on the same frequency, and we have the IRS, single IRS, distributed IRS. It's more on IRS, where do we place this IRS, but we still have the self-interference cancellation. Another application here is like we do sensing and we do communication at the same time. So we receive information, but then we transmit to sensing for this target. We have so many problems. We have channel estimation, we have resource allocation. So there are so many problems to solve in these cases. Okay, so going maybe deeper now. Self-interference cancellation, and this is the one that we have done actually for more than 2 years with Huawei. This is the transmitter, certainly this is the receiver, our own, and then this is the self-interference. And then you can say, well, okay, but I know what I'm going to transmit, I know what's here, right? So how come I'm not able actually to remove this self-interference? I should be able to do that. But it's not so simple, because the signal goes through all this transmitting chain, and you have the power amplifier, and then you have the maybe IQ imbalance, and the phase noise, and then you have quantization noise. And actually there are different layers or levels of removing the self-interference. In the propagation level here, and also analog level, but but we deal with the residual, the so-called residual, which is in the digital domain. And there is something else, because when we transmit, I mean, we don't know each channel, right? We don't know it can move, right? We can have vehicular, vehicles, pedestrians, whatever. This channel also changes, right? And we can have the line of sight, but we can also have the reflections, right? The diffuse components from the reflections. So, in terms of the digital canceller, what we look at the linear component, because there is a linear component and there is a nonlinear component. So we use a linear canceller, right, for the linear component, or to estimate the linear component, sorry, a linear estimator, and nonlinear or something else to estimate the nonlinear component. You can also say, why don't you use, I don't know, neural network to estimate both the linear and nonlinear component, right? Well, because for whatever reason it doesn't work well. Because the linear component is much stronger, and then the model, you will need a very complex model to be capable of extracting right onto model both linear and nonlinear. And by splitting it like that, there is no complexity and you get better results. And what I'm showing here, certainly that as input you have the sequence that you know, but you will see that actually with some history, with some memory, and also you have the sequence of the output, actually the signal that you receive, the anti-signal that you receive, self-interference minus the linear component, and you feed it here into the nonlinear canceller and you get some results. Now let's see what exists in the literature, and it has been actually quite some work done by Stamming. Stamming was in Switzerland at Lausanne, and now it's a TU Delft. So he has done great work in this area. Even now in the ASCII, they organized a special session, an invited session on this topic. So very simple from the machine learning perspective, right? Very simple. I mean, what am I saying here? This is a feed-forward neural network. Everybody knows about that, but it's actually a time delay neural network. So we have some delay because you need to extract, the correlation basically between, that sequence and how, right in the transmitting channel, how basically those symbols interact with each other. So this is real value, so we have real value, imaginary value of the symbols, we get real value, imaginary value of the self-interference nonlinear component. Stamming also looked at a very simple example of recovered neural network when he used just feedback from the output of the neuron to the input, nothing like long short-term memory, nothing like, so very, very simple actually structure. And then he looked at the complex value, time-delay neural networks, so instead of having real and imaginary inputs and the same for the outputs, he just used the complex numbers. And you see that that saves actually complexity. Now, these are the parameters. There is a test bed, a duplex test bed. And what I really want to emphasize here is the bandwidth, the sampling frequency, the average transmit power, you see, 10 million, and about 20,000 samples. And these three structures, they were trained, they were, everything down with these parameters, and we look at the nonlinear self-interference signal, and that was about 6 dB, see, here, and then if you look at the total one, is about basically self-interference cancellation about 44 dB. So basically, you can see that the nonlinear is much smaller. And all these three structures, the RNN has the highest training time, and the real value, the lowest one. So what's interesting for us at the end of the day, whatever we use, is what is the performance, right? We train all those three structures to get a similar performance. And you can say, okay, then why do you care about that? Because I care about complexity. Our point was really how to design a model to be less and less complex. So we designed all these structures to get almost a similar cancellation performance. You can see that this is a shadow structure, number of neurons, and then the typical structure. And the gap to the score is about 3.5 dB. So this is the self-interference signal. Then when we have the linear component removed, it drops here. And then the non-linear component, which is much smaller, in order to understand why we have those two different estimators for linear and nonlinear, we reach almost the noise floor. And we need to look at the complexity, that's the idea. So if you look at the complexity for the complex value targeted neural network, we can see that both in terms of the number of parameters and number of flows, it's much lower complexity, and we compare the complexity with the polynomial. It's called Hammerstein parallel polynomial model, and we achieve a similar performance but with reduced complexity. Some conclusions that I already drew, and we look, okay, these are very simple structures, right? Nothing fancy here, but how can we make things even less complex? And we look at the feedback of forward neural network, targeted neural network, and we look at the grid, and we said, well, you know what? Each neuron now has all the inputs, right? All this memory. Do we really need that? Maybe not. So we were thinking, okay, the signal at this time, the symbol, can be important, and I have that as an input to each neuron, but then maybe other symbols which are far away from that, right names are not correlated, and then I don't need, this input to all the neurons. And maybe from this step, maybe I can even remove some of the steps, and I can still get a good result. So very simple things. And now we are thinking, but what about if I have one neuron with all these signals, delay signals of the signal at this time and then delay connected at the neuron, but then maybe we have a sliding window. So because we know that the sliding window is an effective method for time series prediction. Certainly what is the size of that window and so on. And then we look at other structures like hybrid layer structures. So one is convolutional layer, and then we have a current layer. So we basically have the input, but in this case we have the in-phase and the quadrature. We create like an image, right? And then the convolutional layer, we reshape the layer such that we can get from the time series such that we can use the recurrent layer, and we have the outputs. Well, that's an example, right? The filters, what we do, and then how we basically arrange them such that we can feed them into the recurrent layer. But then this recurrent layer was pretty complex. Then we said, okay, what about we add a dense layer, and that will give us some degrees of freedom, and maybe the structure is not so complex. Okay? So that's what we tried. But we tried other ideas. And you can see here neural network structures. So, again, it's important to have the input at time n, but also a memory, but also to bring the outputs, because there is, kind of a feedback. And now, if we have the first layer as being the linear layer and everything connected, that's real value of two basically hybrid layers in neural network. But then we said, what about if we connect the inputs and then we connect the outputs separately? Let's try to see. And let's look at the results. So we designed all these structures to get a similar performance, and then we wanted to look at the complexity. These are the parameters, different parameters for the ladder type structure, for the time grid, the number of recurrent neurons, dense neurons, and so on. And you can see here all these structures that we look at, and you can see that the cancellation is more or less similar, the gap to the noise floor is more or less similar. There are no problems if you look at the power spectrum density. Again, this is the SIC, it drops the linear component and the non-linear component, and this is how we design actually these networks. And now we look at the complexity, and if you look at the complexity, that's the baseline, the polynomial with degree 5, the Hammerstein parallel polynomial model, real value neural networks, complex value neural networks. And if you look at the complexity, basically, we can see that some of them, are winners, and they provide really low complexity, decreasing the complexity, especially these structures here, the last structures that I showed you, but also the ladder type structure. Okay, now, all good. That was for one set of data. This is what we had at that time. But we can have different transmit powers, we can have different channels, we can have different modulations, that was the PPSK. We can have different bandwidths. So what about the IMDs, right? IMD3, IMD5. Can we capture them if we sample? If we increase the power, the nonlinearity increases. Is this model going to work? And then, meanwhile, we got another set of data, which is available online. And in this case, the average transmit power was 32 dBm. And now we increase the sampling rate. Okay? And let's see, we didn't design the structures with those data, but we just tried to see how the previous structure worked with the new data in the new environment. And again, all these friends that we had, and we love them, but now, when we look at the gap to noise floor, those that provided lower complexity, actually we don't like the gap to the noise floor. The gap is relatively high. So the one which gives us a better gap to the noise floor is actually this complex value neural networks, right? Gap to the noise floor, but also reduced complexity. I should tell you that these data sets are available for the public. We also tested with a lot of data from Huawei, which results are not made public, with different powers, again, different. And this is actually for the Huawei data, we even look at where exactly do we process the signal, before the filter, after the filter. So it really matters, how fast can we sample, how much can we afford to sample. Because if we sample at higher rate, we will be able to extract IMDs, right? And the nonlinearity, and we can do much better. And I can tell you that with these simple examples, we did pretty well, But now, and I'm going to skip this summary. But now the question was, okay, but what we did, we used 20,000 samples. And my channel is changing. So can we actually, is this model good for, if I have a lot of movement, a lot of scattering, a lot of reflections and so on. And so maybe we need to train the model again, or because, how can we make the model more general, or what can we do? So, and then we look at these models actually. With a lower number of samples. So to see, can we train, really fast? And we look at the support vector machines, actually, the support vector regressor, to see what can we do with the support vector regressors for smaller, which is suitable for smaller and medium-sized data sets. Okay, here I just mentioned what the support vector reversal is. I'll skip on that. So this is again the transmitter and the receiver. And with the support vector regressor, actually we get the signal that we transmit. We also basically end the signal that we receive and actually extract the linear component, and then we have the in-phase quadrature. We have two SDRs. We estimate the nonlinear component, and then we remove both the linear and nonlinear components from the received signal. So some similar to neural networks. So we have these two SDRs, and again, we have the inputs, the signal, and with some history, but also we bring the outputs. So let's look at these two data sets that we have here, and besides neural network support vector machines, we also use two benchmarks from the literature, tensor compression and deep output methods. These were also proposed by Stein. What tensor compression is, basically the signal or the self-interference was modeled as a low-rank tensor. And in the deep unfolding, basically we have filters, and then from the filters, from the structure of the filters, you can actually translate that into a neural network, and you can train the neural network. The same technique has been used in optical communications. I didn't tell you about what we do in optical communications at all. So what we do in optical communications, we try to transmit at very long distance in long haul with high speed and high order modulations, and certainly for that we need to increase the power. But what happens there, once we increase the power, the optical fiber becomes a nonlinear environment. And in terms, we know the nice channel, right? If we increase the power or the SNR, right? We have a higher rate. Well, in optical communication, it goes down, right? And we try to develop some algorithms, signal processing or machine learning-based algorithms to mitigate the effect of nonlinearity. It's much more complex in optical fiber. But one of the methods there is a very complex method. As I use the same technique, that being very complex with like a signal processing method, that they look how to unfold it in a neural network. But the neural network was very deep, so very complex. And then they use the techniques, the typical techniques, pruning or such that they get a similar performance, but with reduced complexity. In this particular case, it's not so bad, because the network is not so deep and the complexity is not so high. But the idea is actually the same as in the optical, the method as it is in the optical fiber. And besides, we use the polynomial model. So let's look at this data set once, and what we have here is the self-interference cancellation, and that's the data set size, 2,000 samples to 5,000 samples. What we can see in red, that still the neural network, even if it trains to it with a lower number of samples, doesn't do so bad. But if you look at the training time, those two methods that I just mentioned in blue, they need a larger training time. And if I look at memory storage, the support vector regressor doesn't do so well. If you look at the number of flops, it doesn't do so well, the support vector. And especially if I increase the number of samples, because then I end up with more support vectors, right, at the edge. So. Okay, that was for public data set 1. What was that? Lower power, right? Lower power. And for lower power, the polynomial, well, the performance at least is not so bad. This light blue, right? Okay, what about when we increase the power? so well, but still the neural network does pretty well. And then we look at some efficiency of the transfer, looking at really the performance, the four metrics, right? One metric is really the cancellation, one is the training time, the other one is the flops, and the other one is the memory which is required. So, if we look at the public cell data one, here's low power. Well, the polynomials is here in one case, like here I'm really interested in the cancellation performance only, right? That 1, 0, 0. This one I'm interested in all four metrics, but still the polynomial is doing pretty well. But once I increase the power, actually the polynomial doesn't do so well, but rather, again, the neural network does a pretty good job. So, see, even if we had a lower number of samples to train the network, because it was also a very simple model, it worked pretty well. But other techniques, like this one, the new ones they mentioned, don't work well at all. Now, again, we follow a model-centric approach, but also we really looked at, again, the Huawei data set, where exactly do we sample. Now, what are we doing now? Are we happy with this model? It's not bad, but still, there are other machine learning techniques that we want to look at, and what is really their capability, especially in terms of self-interference cancellation. If we look at online learning, or now we are looking at extreme learning machine, because we really want to train very fast, right? And we don't want to use, the algorithms in neural networks, but rather we resolve that or solve that system of equations. So what is really the performance? Is it acceptable? Because yes, we are interested in the complexity, low complexity. We are interested in capturing the effect of the channel changes, but we are really interested in the self-interference cancellation performance, right? So this is what we are really looking at, and how we can generalize. And again, we kind of train test with various parameters. But what you also saw in this discussion today, we just assumed that we have the self-interference signal. We didn't assume any signal of interest, but when at the receive side, we get the self-interference plus the signal of interest. So the question is, okay, are we really able to recover the signal of interest? Does it work so well when I have signal of interest plus the self-interference? And this is what we are doing now. And all the discussion today was about really CISO, because, not even for CISO the problem is not solved, right? But we really need to look at the MIMO case. When we have the MIMO case, do we have all these structures for each, branch? No, we need to do something to simplify things, but otherwise it becomes really complex. So that's something for us to study in the future. And really we say, yes, physical layers, there are no problems to resolve. Well, this is really a problem to resolve, okay, the physical layer. Because if you go to the network layer, yes, there are other problems to resolve, because you end up with an interference limiting scenario. But not even this one is resolved, right? Talking about for duplex. So if you truly want to resolve something, to implement or to work with industry, there is more work to be done in this area. And I think that this concludes actually my talk. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. Yes, please.
I'm not an expert, but I'd like to ask something to understand the scope of the current research. Full duplex is being used from 3G and above, right?
Full duplex, actually, we work in half duplex currently in the systems, right? Full duplex is more like not quite there. Yeah. So they have experience,
But we use frequency domain and time domain in order to be able to transmit and receive at the same
yes,
time, right?
yes.
So this will not
But
be
this
a full
is in the
duplex?
same time, in the same frequency.
You are talking about full duplex, same time, same frequency.
Yes. And this is where the interference comes, big interference, right? With ourselves, because it's like you and I, we talk in the same time, right? And but we use the voice frequency.
Yes.
So then, am I going actually to receive your signal, to decode your signal because I'm talking and I generate interference to myself?
Okay.
Yes, so that's kind of a base station, right? I need to hear many users, but also I transmit to some users and I use the same frequency. And it really depends on, I mean, if we talk about multi-user, we go into another, area. But even if myself, forget about users, right? Forget. It's just only one. And I receive and transmit in the same time and at the same frequency, I will create interference for myself. I need to be capable to extract my interference and to listen only to your signal. And you can say, but you know what you are going to transmit. Yes, I know, but it goes through all that chain, and what I receive is not quite what I transmit, because of everything that happens in the transmit chain, receive chain, but also in the channel, right? So I need to deal with that.
And why was not a problem before 5G?
Okay, yes. Very good question, excellent. Thank you so much. The spectrum is scarce. Right? We tried in time different techniques to use the spectrum more efficiently, right? Well, we didn't have so many, we didn't need as much bandwidth, right, for like video streaming, but now we have VR, XR, we talk about metaverse, so big, we need large bandwidth, right? So, then it was okay because see, when we had this chunk of bandwidth, we split it to users, frequency division, multiple access. We gave some small pieces to everybody, and everybody was happy. But then we wanted more and more bandwidth, right? And they said, okay, well, time domain, right? As you said, time domain multiple. We give you the bandwidth, but we give that in time to you, right? Well, that's not nice either, because some of the applications are delay sensitive, and I cannot wait until everybody gets its own portion to get my portion again. I want now, and I want this much, It's like the human being, okay. And then we went to OFDM, orthogonal frequency division multiple access. And then we said, okay, we have this bandwidth, we have some subcarriers, but it's not like, this one and this one, right, they don't overlap. But now we have overlapping between subcarriers, and I give this to him and this to him, but they overlap, so I can use the bandwidth more efficiently, and there is a certain mechanism actually for them to extract the information also, because there is orthogonality between these subcarriers. Okay, and actually OFDM is now used even for 5G. They use OFDM, and well, there are also other techniques, but as a technique, right? But now we want to transmit in this bandwidth
like bits per second per hertz, right? Lots of transmission, so per hertz in that bandwidth, bits per hertz. So and there are so many users, and again, that bandwidth, that spectrum is limited. So what about if I now transmit and receive at the same time, at the same frequency? So I utilize the frequency much better, and basically, through that, theoretically, if you want, we can double the spectral efficiency, which is bits per square, spectral efficiency in spectrum, how efficient we are if we talk in the same time, same frequency, but we still understand each other. So that's the main point. Because of the applications which are coming, they are in 5G, but we are not here with the full duplex, but they will be coming down the road, and there are still many efforts in realizing, being able to deal with this self-interference, to cancel it, and then what happens in the network, then that's an extra problem to solve. Thank you so much. Yes.
So you have the linear part, takes out the linear figures and then the non-linear.
Yes.
What else? So the train is not converged, or you just converge the linear part and then you want to
I'm sorry.
So you do the train concurrently, or you train the linear part first, converge?
Yeah, the linear part.
Do converge.
Yes, we do that, yes.
Okay, my basic understanding is the problem of wireless communication and why 4 gigabits is a challenge is the fact that the received signal is way attenuated compared to the transmitted signal.
No, the signal of interest, I'm the base station, right? And I transmit I transmit and I receive in the same frequency, same time, right? Think that I cannot yell. But if I yell, if I increase my power, I will overwhelm myself, right? And if you are on the hallway, and if you are speaking, even if you are increasing your power, I might not hear you, because the signal of interest can be much weaker than my own signal. So I overwhelm my own the signal of interest.
So my question is, how much I need to get rid of my signal, my self-interference?
Bring it at the noise floor. This is why we look at the gap to noise floor. I want to bring it at the noise floor, there, right?
Okay, so
that's the point.
What's the accepted value?
It really depends, because you need to look at the signal plus interference noise ratio. And in that signal plus interference noise ratio, you need to account for your self-interference. So it really depends. What modulation you are using, what performance you want to get. That's, yeah. But we want to be there, right? As low as it can be. And we want to work in any scenario. A general model, regardless of the power, regardless of the modulation, regardless of what's going on in the channels. Yes.
Concerning the point of having a neural network-based training, I have a question. If we are getting a data set, so this data set is time-stamped for a certain time, so how can we extend this timestamp to be doing a kind of forecasting for the next year, next month, without reiterating the wheel because as you know, after 1 month, for example, we need to reinvent or reoperate the training process, your training, validation, and testing. So how can we extend this time span?
The time span, so from here to next year, right? Well, it's really, I don't know if I see necessarily from here to next year. I can see even from here to 1 hour from here, or 2 hours from here, Because if my channel changes significantly, I will have something different. And this is why we are looking at, now really into machine learning, and we are not really specialists on machine learning, but other wireless, but we try to see what would be better models to use, and we look at extreme learning machine. And in extreme learning machine, complexity might increase, because it's also a neural network. Yeah, hope I remember correctly now. It's a neural network. Does it have one hit over here? Okay. But actually, you can. I mean, the training process is not backpropagation. You just solve a system of linear equation. You know, maybe, but we don't know if the performance will be there. But you know, with that, you can use very short time, like your pilots, because this is what we are trying to do. We try to use whatever is sent as pilot, that duration. Pilot, maybe I can retrain, you know, fast. If I can do it fast, with good performance, that's it, right? My pilot. Yeah, so that's the idea. So I don't think that I will look over a span of a year or, you know, but again, shorter span. And find some techniques, you know, to be able maybe to train, you know, at least from time to time when we have the pilots.
Training is very costly. So when you are going to
But with the extreme learning machine, that's the thing, because the training might not be so costly. With the neural network that we have now, training may be costly, but that's what we are trying to do now, to look at something else that does. And this is what we tried with support vector regressors. We said, okay, how many samples at that frequency, sampling frequency, you know, that we had, is that the duration, is that the, you know, what we have for synchronization, or, you know, in the frame, or is that time, you know, that I can use. So, but I think that we should look really at other machine learning techniques to be able to kind of learn very fast, right?
How fast?
How fast? Well, it's at the duration of a frame. And if I remember now, I might be wrong because I have so many numbers in my head. But the LTE frame, and maybe even the 5G, but please for 5G don't call me for that, maybe it's 10 milliseconds. But also 5G depends on the data, because yeah, if they want to transmit faster, then they reduce the space, the subcarrier space. For LTE it's 15 gigahertz, but for 5G, depending, you know, it's 15, 30, 60, and so on. So, but you have some microseconds that you want to you know, things to work with some microseconds. I mean, at least for the duration of a frame, right, that you receive. Hopefully your channel is quasi-stationary, and so you need to do it really fast. Yes?
Do you do aggregation for the signals from the base station that return, or is it per user to have a receiver?
Okay, so all the signals, okay, so in this case, we just consider a very simple scenario. We have only one signal, or not even, we don't even have the signal of interest. We just generated the signal and started the self-interference, right? But then, this is what I was saying now in the last slide, when you have the signal of interest, maybe from one user, from different users, how do you handle that, right? If you have a NOMA, well, NOMA is not power domain, NOMA is not in the standard, but let's assume, for the sake of, you know, an example, if you have NOMA and you have a cluster and they transmit to you, then yeah, you need to be able to do successive interference cancellation. That's another level of interference, right? And to remove your self-interference such that you are able to recover the information from the users. But we haven't considered the signal of interest so far.
Any more questions?
What is the activation function of the user? The activation function.
Activation function?
Sorry, and the loss function.
Oh, the loss function. It means square. Mean square error. Yes.
Kernel is used in
Yes, radial basis function. Yes. Yeah, I don't remember now the parameter gamma yeah, by heart, but yeah. But we actually all these parameters, hyperparameters, we optimize them.
With the trend to use higher frequency bands, 5G and 6G, again, do you think that it is feasible to use good optics instead of using superconductor?
Yes, yeah, that's a very good question. Now, the millimeter in the millimeter wave band, we know that spectrum was allocated for 5G, and we know that they look at the terahertz frequencies of I don't know amps, but still the band is really. I mean, maybe it's not now, maybe it's not in 2 years, maybe it's not. But the time will come, because where exactly do we go with the band? Because the terahertz is the last frontier, right? And then we go to optical. So, and the terahertz, as we know, the attenuation is very high, it's short distances, and actually in the terahertz, it will depend on the environment, because it's more like optical. There are molecules, there will be absorptions, and there are windows, like on the optical fiber, windows in which the attenuation is low. I mean, the question is, has time come for full duplex? Are we happy with what we have? Maybe now, I mean, we found a way to allocate spectrum in millimeter wave. Would that be enough in 10 years? Would that be enough in 20 years? I don't know. So, but we are doing research on that.
Concerning the training data sets, mostly also represent for game environment applications. How you get the data sets to train for those two topics?
It was a test lab. So basically, we transmitted and basically information. Yes. And also the partner did the testing labs for us. We weren't involved with we just got the data from them. No, it will not reflect the real working condition. And this is the next step that we want to do to change the channel and try to, in a way, mean. Because still you don't go, in the city, right? To the measurement. Yes, you are perfectly right. Yes. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, what about the complexity? I mean, is this something that we can implement in a wide handset, or because you were speaking about more or less about base stations?
More or less,
energy efficiency.
we are taking step by step. So it will be more, base station for the moment, because it has more capabilities for computing and so but for the mobiles, also it should be in a way because they become more and more complicated. Hopefully the time will come for this technology.
Okay, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Very interesting, very enriching for us, our student community. We also thank our students who were able to come today and get glimpse of what's happening outside of the classroom, the normal classroom. So we will have the slides. Also, we have some general slides about the Memorial University, which we will share with you or our website, as possible to go to the website. So thanks again and for coming and sharing your experience with us. And we hope to start some cooperation with
Yeah, great pleasure. And thank you so much for taking the time to attend the talk. And if you have any ideas about machine learning, how we can do it better, please let us know. We love to collaborate. And not only in this area, not only on this topic. Thank you so much.